things just to have an audience with Solomon. You got to be a pretty important person for somebody to give up that type of money just to sit down with you. Just to, you got to have a gift. I'm paying all of this type of money to come sit down and talk with you for a while. That's a big deal. God blessed Solomon, blessed his socks off. But then now we're going to get into where his gift began to become more important than the gift giver, and that's going to be captured in 1 Kings chapter 11. And verse 1 says, "But Solomon loved many foreign women, as well as the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites." Solomon loved multiple women, all these foreign women, because they brought him pleasure. Now, a lot of people would think that, well, clearly Solomon liked sex. Sex is a pleasure. Everybody would agree with that, but it don't say he just enjoyed these women. He loved these women. Solomon had a connection with these women. He loved them. It's more than just sex there. It's the fact that I'm pretty sure he sat down, he talked with them, he got to know them personally, he let them get to know him, and they developed a love for one another, because clearly it says King Solomon loved many foreign women. Now, in this time, multiple wives was tolerated. God tolerated multiple wives. David had, recorded in the Bible, David only had 7. He probably had more that just weren't mentioned, but multiple wives was tolerated. David had 7, and then now we have Solomon, who loved many foreign women. And verse 2 says, "For the nations of whom the Lord had said to the children of Israel, you shall not intermarry with them, nor they with you. Surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods." Solomon clung to these in love. And then in verse 3 it says, "And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart." So God's tolerating multiple wives, and Solomon takes that, what I would say, to an extreme. This brother got 700 wives, princesses, all princesses. He got top-notch women. These are women that's been born and bred and really just catered to all of their lives. He got 700 of them as his wives. High maintenance. So, they got to, probably back then, I don't know, but they probably didn't take a bath every day. These women probably did. Why? Because I'm a princess. These women probably had the fine jewelry that they had to have certain things because they were princesses. So he got 700 of them, then he got 300 concubines. Solomon got 1,000 women. That's a lot of women, man. That's a lot of women. 1,000? And they stayed with him. They had the palace. And he's the king. And he got 1,000 women at home to deal with. Solomon he had to have some wisdom. He's a better man than me. He's a better man than me. But here it is. These women brought Solomon pleasure. But what began to happen was when the gift became more important than the gift givers, because like I said in verse 2, God's commandment to the children of Israel was that they were not to intermarry with these foreign women. Solomon's pleasure had gotten to him in such a way where he began to disobey God's word and start marrying these foreign women for whatever reason. It's actually in I think it was earlier in verse 3 where it said that Solomon married Pharaoh's daughter just for the fact that they had a treaty. They made a treaty between Israel and Egypt, and Solomon married Pharaoh's daughter. He disobeyed God just to show that there's peace between Israel and Egypt. Now, God just gave you this wisdom and all this honor. You're the most esteemed person on the planet. You didn't have to marry this woman to show that there was peace. You want to see peace? You stay over there and leave us alone? We'll stay over here and leave you alone. I don't have to marry your daughter. Well, we think that'd be a good political move so people could see action. No, because that's against what my God told me to do. I will not violate his commandments and marry your daughter. No disrespect, but it's not happening. Peace is peace. Stay over there. We're going to stay over here. You got a problem? Then we could talk about being allies. But other than that, you stay in your corner. We're going to stay in ours. I'm not marrying none of your women. Because God clearly said don't intermarry with these people. And Solomon did that because clearly this woman was pleasing in his sight at the time to Solomon. And now that pleasure that I want to engage in and have her to come be mine, okay, yeah, not a problem. We'll get married because she's quite lovely. I like the way she looks. I'm pleased with her, and I'm pretty sure she can bring me pleasure. So we begin to, and the same with us. We'll begin to look away from what God has told us to do just to satisfy what we think is something that, one of our pleasures. It could be something that's small, and usually the gods of pleasure usually start off with small compromises. We'll compromise small. I'll eat one donut. Just gonna eat one. Even though and this ain't even an agreement with God, I made an agreement with myself. I'm gonna stop eating all these foods that's bad for me, but I'm gonna compromise. I'm gonna eat a half a donut, okay? I haven't gotten all my calories for the day. It's probably about this many calories in this donut, so then I'll make up for it later on and don't have whatever else I was planning to have. And you sit there, you compromise, and you begin to lie to yourself. And then when that next dessert comes around, man, that looks good. I don't want them to feel like they just, wasted their time and money, so I'm going to go ahead and eat it. I'll work it off tomorrow. And those little compromises begin to get deeper and deeper and deeper till it gets to a point where now we're making a complete sacrifice just to please ourselves because we won't tell ourselves no. And what comes with that, that pleasure now that we have for food, or that pleasure we get from our television, or the pleasure we get from our vehicles or our home, we'll begin to make these sacrifices just so I can keep and have the pleasure that I had from this thing that it once brought me. Now, just like the kid with the video game, they had all of this. They were so pleased by the gift at the beginning, but it seems like from what we say, man, it's getting old. I need the new stuff. You need to give me the new parts of the game so that I can have my pleasures reactivated in me so that now I'm even more pleased with this game. I need the headphones where I could talk. I need what they call it on the Xbox, the little live thing. Man, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, I need an Xbox Live account because if I don't have that, then I can't interact with nobody online. So you got to pay for that, Mom, because I don't have a job. That's going to be $35 a month, I think, or something like that. And then I need the headphones, which is probably like $60. I need the cordless controller so I can sit further away from the TV, try to multitask and make you think I'm doing my homework when I'm not. But I'm playing this video, and unless I have those things, I'm not pleased. How many of y'all would like to play an Atari? Somebody brought you an Atari and said, Merry Christmas. You're going to be like, really? Really? And think of, now you might be excited because it's a vintage game. It's a retro game. But once you start playing them games, you're going to be like, man, this is boring. Nobody want to see the little ball bounce around the screen anymore. And nobody want to see the little spaceship that just goes from side to side and you shooting little lines at it. Because the pleasure of that is not there anymore because now we have Xbox Live, or Xbox One is the latest one now. You got the PlayStation where you're literally moving in the games doing what you're doing. So now how does Atari look? Quite boring with just that little joystick. There's no pleasure there anymore. And now, for some, I'll sacrifice just to have that pleasure again. I can't afford all of these things, but I'll go get a credit card and I'll go buy what I need because I need to have that. I want to be excited about my game again, and we'll call it excitement, but we're seeking for that pleasure to be there once again. We want that rekindled. And that's what, now with Solomon, clearly he married a woman. He married one at one point in time, clearly. And then he continued to marry 700 wives. Like, a part of that had to be the fact that, I love her, but this woman's totally different from that woman. And then this one is totally different from this one. And this one is totally different from this one. So I want to keep that excitement about my women, so I'm not buying. I'm marrying new ones. And it's causing me to compromise with what God's commandment was for his people. And that was, like I said, I'm not saying it was all sex driven, but that was the pleasure that Solomon wanted to keep in his life by having these multiple high class women. That's my wife. Can you imagine what the other kings were saying that probably only had 50 women? Man, but you ain't got Solomon got 700. He got 700 women, bro. You ain't messing with Solomon though. It's like, yeah, I don't know how Solomon do it. So can you imagine the conversations? And can you imagine the slight sense of pride Solomon might have had when he strutted into some other king's place and like, hey, I'm Solomon. 700, bruh, 700. Y'all not messing with me. But that was that, and we'll and kids nowadays, as we'll say, will do the same thing. Just think about like Jordans. The kid that might just got his first pair of Jordans, first pair of J's. Parents, because he got straight A's. And he over there, he's happy, he's excited, he's pleased with these shoes, he's walking weird so he don't get no creases in his shoes, all of that. Man, don't step on my shoes. Y'all need to stand about arm distance away. Don't step on my shoes. And then have somebody come up and be like, oh, you just got one pair. I got like the 1s, the 3s, got the 23s, the 11s. I don't even know how many I got. And now he looking like, man, these was cool, but I need the 3s now and the 11s. Because these, what about when these get old? Because when these get old, now I got a standard that I go by. I got to be wearing J's. And now that pleasure will become a god to him, so much so that there's kids that will steal another kid's shoes, literally steal the shoes off your feet, just so they can satisfy this pleasure of being what? Just to say, man, he always got the J's. He always got the latest J's, or he always got the retros, and they always clean. No, like people died over Jordans. We got to be real here. People has died over some shoes. And that's a bad place to be, just to please yourself. Just so you can please yourself, you're killing people. David did it. Solomon seen that first. Well, he wasn't. I can't say he's seen it firsthand because he wasn't born yet. But he knew the story. I'm pretty sure he knew the story. Like, man, your mom she must have looked good because David killed your could have been daddy. He killed her husband so he could have her. So, I'm sure he heard the story and he's seen how these things could overwhelm you to a place where you do things that's totally opposite of what God has for us to do. But yet, and like I said, it always starts small. There's always something little, just a little compromise, that's all. And once you crack the door open, after a while, it starts to crack a little wider, a little wider, a little wider, and next thing you know, you got this stronghold in your life. You got this issue where now I have to have it. I gotta have this, and I'll do whatever it takes to have it, including steal, kill, lie. I'll do whatever I need to do to have this this pleasure become such a part of me that it never dies down and gets old, because I want to be living here with my pleasures at all times. And like I said, Solomon's pleasures were his wife, but God had warned Solomon in 1 Kings 11:2, and said that his wives, was it 1 Kings? No, he had warned Solomon earlier in chapter 3 that if you marry these foreign women, they will turn your heart away from me and unto their gods, these idols that they worship. God warned Solomon, but yet Solomon began to compromise, not thinking it was a big deal. But then eventually Solomon's heart was turned away from God into serving and worshiping, really, these other gods. In 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 7 through 10, and I'm going to read that for you guys real quick. And it says, then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the people of Ammon. And he did likewise for all his foreign wives who burnt incense and sacrificed for their gods. So the Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned from the Lord God to Israel, and who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but he did not keep what the Lord had commanded him. Solomon not only allowed his heart to be turned away, but he also began to worship his pleasures God. His women were his pleasure, and his pleasures had gods. So now his heart's turned away from the one and only God to worshiping the gods of his women, because that is where his pleasure was. That's where his pleasure lied, and he wanted to keep them happy. He wanted to keep them satisfied. So here it is, Solomon's now making sacrifice and building altars for these women's foreign gods in Jerusalem. Solomon accomplished building a house for the Ark of the Covenant. He built God's house where the Ark of the Covenant would dwell, so that's where God would dwell on the earth. Solomon built that high place for the one true and living only God. And then after a while, he started building similar places for these other false gods. Right there on the east of Jerusalem, people seeing these things, and can you imagine how the people was like, Solomon, what are you doing? Like, why are you building these other altars? Well, you know, the queen must make sacrifices yearly to her gods. Well, if she's your wife, she should be serving our God. You're allowing your pleasures to have their way, and now you've strayed away from the God who gave you everything you have in the first place. He gave you the ultimate gift, and you're allowing your heart to be turned away because you find pleasure in these women, and you want to keep them satisfied. You want to keep them happy, and now they're requesting for you to build them an altar for their God so they could go worship and pray. So can you imagine the first wife he built one? He got 700. So now she gets her altar where she could go make sacrifices and things like that to her God. So what you think the rest of them going to say? Oh, no, I don't know who Solomon thinks he's messing with. Hey, I need mine too. I need my little altar for the wig God because I need to keep my hair straight. You want me to look like this, then I need to go worship my God. Well, now the next one is a fitness fanatic, and she got to stay keep a certain figure. So now she has a God that she needs to make sacrifices, because if you want me to look good, Solomon, only way I get these looks is because I worship this God. So you need to provide me a place where I could go worship my God. And Solomon's allowing this because his pleasures now now they no longer asking him to compromise smallly. Now they're demanding, like, I have to have these things. And and our pleasures do the same thing. For instance, and I don't mean to talk about nobody in particular, but for instance, we have the great invention of DVR, but yet when football season comes around, some people, they'll come to church, but they gotta get home to go see the game. And they may even be recording it, but I don't want to watch it pre-recorded. I want to see it live. So I got to get up out of here. I got to go home to go watch the game. Some people leave church early so they could go watch the game. Now, this is a time where you get to hear a word from God, from the man and woman of God, and you will cut that short so you can go satisfy yourself and go watch the game live, even though God has given us the great invention of DVR where you can record it. And they'll say, well, but if I'm recording it, by the time I get home from church, somebody will call me, told me how the game going. Turn your phone off. And nobody will call you. Well, I can't turn my phone off because what if something happened? Well, how many times you drove from church to your house and nothing happened? Nobody called you. But just today is a what if something happened, somebody got to call me. Well, then let them leave you a voicemail. You check it when you get home and you make your arrangements. But our pleasures begin now to go from small compromises of us trying to just look up statuses on our phone to see how the game's going to I want to see it live. I have to see the game live. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to watch it on my cell phone, which is something that's foreign to, what's the guy that created the cell phone name? I mean, not cell phone, but the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell. I'm pretty sure he would have never thought his invention would have been to a point where you could watch live TV on your phone. But you could do that nowadays, and people still rushing to get home because I want to see it live. And I'll cut God's message short so I could go satisfy myself. I'll cut that short, and some people say, well, I don't do that at church. How many times have some people sacrifice their families to go satisfy themselves? Your wife wants to spend time with you, but the game's on. Got to see the game. And you'll say, well, after the game, we could go do thus and so. But she asking for your attention now. She wants your attention right now. After the game, I'm asleep. I don't want to wait till after the game. We need to go spend some time now. I want to spend time with you now, but it's like, nah, I'll make that sacrifice after the game, babe. We can go and we'll go to the movies or something like that. And now it's gone from a slight compromise to an actual sacrifice. No different than what these gods asked for. In worship, they offered sacrifices to these gods. Our sacrifices are no longer sheeps and doves and bulls. Our sacrifices now have become to our family, our children, our wife. It's come to our health. We'll sacrifice our health just to indulge in something that we know is going to take us to an early grave. Because the gods of pleasure now, they no longer It started off with just a compromise, but I'm no longer satisfied with the compromise. I demand worship. It needs to be a part of your life now. I want you to everywhere you go, it's clear that you worship the Krispy Kreme donut guy, because I can see it. And I wouldn't say worship, but, you know, I made some sacrifices that I ain't too happy about. And I plan to change that soon, but I made some sacrifices. And in all honesty, all jokes aside, in preparing this message, I really had to check myself. I was like, God, I'm out there. Like, man, I'm sacrificing. He was like, yeah, bro, you sacrificing. I love you, though. I love you. Come on back. Come on back. I'm here. But you be sacrificing from time to time. You need to cut that. You need to